purpose of this presentation is to discuss the complexity of the process of Living Streets Out and About groups experienced trying to make small infrastructure changes within their local community. To give you some background, since 2018, Living Streets have worked across Scotland delivering walking connects and out and about projects. These projects highlighted the importance of walking and walkable communities, working in partnership with older adults, making it easier for participants to keep active, increase their well-being and stay connected through walking. Our project supported local groups to take action for on-street improvements by identifying the barriers to walking safely and easily within their local communities. The Out and About group models promotes healthier lifestyles, builds the confidence and skills of group members, supporting them to have their voices heard and to coordinate action. The Out and About group model came from our work with older adults, however it is relevant to all communities, especially within the current interest in living locally and our ongoing work with 20-minute neighbourhood projects. The Scottish Government has made 20-minute neighbourhoods a priority in the proposed new national planning framework. 20-minute neighbourhoods are where people can find most of their daily and weekly needs within a short walk of their home or short walk to good public transport connections to access these amenities. Living Streets are currently working across a number of 20-minute neighbourhoods in North Lanarkshire, Stirling and Dunblane. But what happens if people find it challenging to undertake a short walk to access local amenities or public transport connections? During our work with Out and About groups, group participants identified a large number of barriers to walking safely and easily across Scotland. These are just some of the examples to barriers to everyday walking, essential walks to local schools, shops, going to local community groups or doctors, real everyday life walking experiences for everyone. As we see, these barriers include the risk of having to walk on roads due to pavement parking, trip hazards from poor pavement surfaces, or having to negotiate pavement clutter. The Out and About groups also identified that the feeling of being unsafe or having to walk in unpleasant environments are also barriers to everyday walking. So why have we chosen to discuss benches in this webinar? The lack of benches or resting places has highlighted the Out and About groups, especially in local authority areas where there was a long walk to and from bus stops or local amenities and where these walks involved having to go up hills. As you will see in this photo, community members even had to take action to provide their own chairs and bus stop shelters. The COVID pandemic raised the importance for the need for social connection and the benefits of being more physically active. But during COVID, we witnessed what few benches we have were being taped off. This increased the fear for some people of not feeling confident to be able to go outside for a walk or to go to local shops without having somewhere to rest, creating a feeling of social isolation and increased loneliness. So the need for more benches became even more relevant to all members of society. Recent initiatives have highlighted the benefits of having somewhere to rest and connect with others. These include the bright yellow chatty benches in Northern Ireland, rainbow benches in North Ayrshire, and Netflix supporting the installation of benches following the recent programme Afterlife. I now want to show you a short film which highlights some of the challenges an Out and About group faced trying to install benches within a town setting. The participants of this Out and About group have a mixture of different skills, experience and knowledge, but they were faced by a number of challenges just trying to make small infrastructure changes within their local community. Unfortunately, these changes were also magnified by COVID. You will notice that most of the filming has been undertaken in Edinburgh. This was due to COVID travel restrictions, but more importantly, you will notice the majority of the benches filmed are in parks. This is because we couldn't find many benches in town setting areas on routes to shops, schools or bus stops. We're also aware one of the participants discusses the length of time waiting for a bus. Obviously, this is different in a large populated area compared to rural setting. I hope you enjoy the film. Between 2018 and 2021, Living Streets worked with various local authorities and Out and About groups to install community benches in Scotland. The following film reflects on the complexity of this experience.
To be honest, I was approached by a local community councillor to come along to a meeting, a Living Streets meeting, about installing benches in your community. And I was a bit kind of like, well, yeah, it's just a bench. What's this about? So I went along and we did a lot of community engagement, going on the bus, trying to find out how people could access transport, And it then struck me, and I suppose it was even after the benches were installed, just how important they were to the community. Because obviously elderly people, it was getting them out. There were some that were actually housebound because they couldn't walk the length of their street to get to the bus stop to come down to the town. Or young mothers even accessing the park, which is at the other end of the estate that they live on. So it was then that I actually realised that there's some projects you get involved in that are really quite, you think are really big, but a bench is really important in a community. It's a conversation that has to be had with the community about what they would want. I feel very strongly about that.
It is hard to go up the hill because of the steepness of the hill. Simple as that. The folk are quite happy to walk down the distance. When they're wanting to come back, they've got to wait for a bus, which is every hour.
When I initially did this, they came back with you can go on to the council website and it will tell you how to have a memorial bench installed. So I was surprised at that, because that wasn't my question. My question was a bench for a local community. It then highlighted basically that there was nothing in place for a community to actually ask for a bench. I thought that installing a bench would be very straightforward, but we kept coming across a lot of difficulties through the council, and eventually it took about 1.5 years before we actually got the final benches installed, and that was at the council that created these kind of barriers. We get some people within the kind of partnership who were really quite negative about it, and you would get other ones within the partnership who were very positive and very supportive and would go that wee bit further. But I think it also highlights the need for a process to be in place at council so we can make it simpler. It doesn't have to be difficult, and as we said, it is only a bench. Maybe some of the people at council don't have a knowledge of this because they've never been asked before. So we have to make it easier then. We should look at that as a council and have, processes put in place, something simple that local communities could look at, and you go through the process installing benches in your community.
It's brilliant. You're speaking to them and you're getting them involved. That's what makes all the difference.
I think, let's face it, if we want people to live locally, we have to make it easily accessible for everything. So I think that's the main thing we have to think about.
I now want to go into more detail of some of the challenges the film highlights and explain what this out and about group experienced during their work installing benches. Living Streets provided the funding to supply the recycled plastic benches for this project. As I said previously, the out and about group participants have a wide range of skills, knowledge and experience, including councillors, community members and participants, including a large council-approved construction and civil engineering company that was managing a large-scale project in the local authority area. The key partner in this work was the local authority. However, as the councillor said in the film, the only link on the local authority website was to install a memorial bench. There's no equivalent to apply to install a bench that was in a local route to shops, schools or bus stops in a town setting. This highlights the lack of understanding of what walking infrastructure is and why it's important. By not having a clearly defined process, it resulted in time delays, lengthy discussions, and the creation of additional work for out and about group members. There was an expectation from the council officer involved that the out and about group had to undertake additional requirements before the benches could be installed. Much of this additional work required a level of technical knowledge and skills for the group. COVID also created challenges as face-to-face meetings were not allowed, so all group meetings had to be online and the site visits were limited to 2 people. Due to COVID, the out and about group were also unable to undertake public consultation meetings, so the group undertook a large-scale community consultation across different formats. The results from the community consultation demonstrated the strong desire of the local community to have these benches installed within this particular area. So following on from the successful community consultation, the out and about group were then asked by local council officer to consider and provide a wide range of additional elements before the benches could start to be installed. These included location maps for benches so utility plans could be applied for, negotiate liability and legal concerns with partners on land ownership and provide written agreements with these partners. Consider concerns of the placement of benches in relation to the risk of trees, root systems and branches in all weathers. The out and about group also had to undertake a tendering process for the installation of 3 bus stop benches, which had to be undertaken by approved council contractors. Despite having to develop and gain new skills to overcome these additional considerations and the impact on the timeframe to install the benches, the out and about group felt that by responding to the community's needs for these benches just made them more determined to overcome these challenges, and 7 benches and 3 bus stop benches have now been installed. But it shouldn't have had to have been this difficult and challenging for this small group to make small infrastructure changes. If this is what it's like for other community groups, think of the impact this will have on our 20-minute neighbourhoods. So following from the learning from this project, I now just want to give a suggested overview of a small infrastructure change project process. I will use the installation of benches as my example. Start with the local community. Identify the need for the local infrastructure change and undertake an in-depth community consultation. Advertise the consultation through a large range of different platforms and formats. Involve the relevant local authority team and find the right person. In each local authority, the relevant team or officer is not always obvious, but it's crucial to the process, so get them on board early. Ensuring they see the positive value of the walking infrastructure change is important. Some local authorities need very little persuasion, while others need to be convinced of any added value to the community. You don't need to be a technical expert. It's essential to work in partnership with the relevant local authority staff who have the technical knowledge, skills and resources. That's why it's crucial to have the right council team officer on board. Support from your local councillors is essentially. Luckily, ours were extremely supportive. Find out if there are any other local partners that can be involved. Are there any local initiatives or relevant works planned locally? This could be housing association improvements, other regeneration plans or cycle pathway projects, etc. Think about your time frame. Understand how long you will actually need for any project that focuses on infrastructure changes and have a project plan that appropriately reflects this. The local authority will then arrange for installation. This can take from a week to several months. It's important to have that conversation early in the process about their capacity to carry out the installation. They may have access to a social justice team who are authorised to do this type of work, or they may be using their own staff. The initial site visit. Arrange a walkabout with the local authority officer and community representative to review potential locations and check on land ownerships and other issues, such as proximity to utilities and trees, and then agree final bench locations, based on your findings from the community consultation and identified budget. Written agreements are required. If land is owned by a partner, you will need their permission to install a bench. Obtain a signed written agreement from the landowner. This should be signed by your project manager for future reference if required. One council team referred the installation on council land to their legal team for written agreement. Liability issues. If the local authority installs the benches, hopefully there should be no problems regarding liability. However, in one local authority, this became a major discussion point. Covering costs. Identify your funding source and budget. If the project does not have a budget, consider supporting the project group to work in partnership with another existing or constituted community group, for example, a community council, to prepare and submit a funding bid for a community grant or similar. Discuss with them if they will charge for any installation or only unit costs. The type of materials and the number of benches will be driven by the available budget. These costs will also vary depending on location, for example, the type of terrain, type of ground and ground preparation work involved. Purchase and installation of benches. If all has gone to plan, the local authority or other partner will purchase the benches in line with their procurement procedures and can then include any other cost, for example, installation, and send a final invoice to the community group or organisation. Be aware of different types of benches and if there are any ongoing maintenance costs. And finally, installation and celebration. Celebrate your new benches with the local press and media coverage.